In the year 2148, explorers on Mars discovered the remains of an ancient spacefaring civilization. In the decades that followed, the artifacts of this discovery led to startling new technologies. This enabled travel to the furthest stars. The basis for this technology was a force that controlled the very fabric of space and time. They call it the greatest discovery in human history. The civilizations of the galaxy call it mass effect. How many of us have had an experience with a story that has so profoundly touched it that it changed the way that we believed about something in the world? I had this experience with a game series called Mass Effect. Mass Effect explained an idea to me that I previously didn't understand in a way that I could understand. It then led me to ask some really big questions about what I believed about my place in the world, and it allowed me to understand more about who I was. And then it took what I learned through the game and through doing some personal development and let me exercise that new way of thinking in really tough moral choices. So what was this idea that Mass Effect introduced me to in a way that I hadn't understood before? The idea was social inequality. I grew up in a small town in Michigan, and I didn't have a lot of diversity in my life. I didn't have a lot of different perspectives on the world and how the world operated. So Mass Effect showed me what it felt like to be a minority. In the game world, humanity in and of itself is a minority. It doesn't matter if you're black, if you're white, if you're Asian, if you're Hispanic, or Indian, you're a minority. It does this by showing you that most of the people that you interact with, most of the characters in the game are not human at any time. So it led me to start feeling alone. I could go into a world full of characters and I would be the only one that looked like me. And so after doing that, the game also shows you that humanity is a second-class citizen. Humanity hasn't had a lot of time to show themselves and show their value in the galactic community because we were just discovered. And so I started to feel marginalized. My opinion did not matter to most of the characters in the game. And so I started to feel alone and I started to feel marginalized. And when I talked to other characters in the game, I realized they had a similar experience. I developed an empathy towards them. I started to understand their perspective and realize that it was valid. So a game explained social inequality to me in a way that I could understand it and allowed me to start empathizing with other people and realize that when people feel like they're marginalized, they're second-class citizens, or they don't feel equal, it's a completely valid way of thinking. I got that perspective from the game. And after developing this new way of thinking and this new belief about social inequality, I was able to start asking myself some deeper questions. I really tried to figure out what it is that I believed about myself in the world. I discovered that what was really important to me was legacy. I want to be remembered for someone who is extremely accepting of others, of other people's opinions, of other people's beliefs. I want to help other people do the same. I also want to help people become better than they are. I want to help people improve themselves. All from working from a simple idea that a game introduced me to and explained it to me. And after introducing me to social inequality and letting me do some personal development, figuring out what I believed about myself and learning about myself, I got to exercise that new way of thinking and that new belief system through some really difficult moral choices. The moral choice that really spoke to me was with a race called the Krogan. In the game world, the Krogan are an extremely warlike race. The way that they evolved through their planet forced them to be very warlike, be very aggressive, always be on the lookout for predators. And because of that, their society developed in a certain way that valued war. Now, in a civilized society, such as the galactic community, that doesn't really fly too well. So when the Krogan started to invade other people's territory, there should have been a war. The galactic community did not want to have the long, protracted war to put down this overtaking of territory, and they definitely didn't want to risk totally eliminating the Krogan. So they decided to come up with what they considered a humane solution. The solution was to introduce a genetic defect in the Krogan population, which reduced their birth rate by 99%. As a player, I got to see the reasoning for this decision. I got to talk with the politicians who developed the solution and find out how they felt about it before and after the effect. I got to talk with the scientists who developed the solution and see how they felt about it, if they had any regrets. And finally, I got to talk with the Krogans themselves and find out how it affected their society, how it changed the way they looked at the world, how it made them hopeless. And because of learning about social inequality and being able to empathize with others, I decided that I wanted to give the Krogans a second chance. So I decided I want to work to try to cure them in the game world. As you can see, Mass Effect has had a profound impact on my life. It's had an extreme impact on my personal development, and I don't believe that if I hadn't played the game, I would be where I was at today, and I wouldn't have it developed to be as accepting as of others. Thomas Wolfe wrote, "Culture is the arts elevated to a set of beliefs." If we can take something as simple as a game, which many people consider as a toy and just a waste of time, and use it to educate people, I believe in today's divisive society, we can show people different people's perspectives. We can give them an empathy with others. We can help them become more understanding. And if we can change somebody's beliefs about how the way the world works and have them be more accepting, we can start to change our culture. And if we can change our culture, we can make the world a better place.